Special thanks to our panelist and moderator for this jam-packed session. We will now give a thought to the future on a reimagining tertiary education. Please welcome on stage Fred Swaniker, co-founder and CEO of the African Leadership Group.
Am I live?
Ladies and gentlemen, sorry, we had some technical issues. Now, the co-founder and CEO of the African Leadership Group, Fred Swaniker, is going to join us virtually with our next panel, the Reimagining Tertiary Education, Going Beyond Tweaking.
Greetings, everyone, and I hope the conference is going well in Dubai. I thought I would share a few brief remarks with you before the panel begins. As we gather to rewire how our education system works for the betterment of humanity. Higher education, if there's any segment of education that is in need of rewiring, is higher education, right? It has the potential to unlock tremendous progress for society and to unlock potential for individuals. Yet today it costs too much, it takes too long, and it is not accessible to millions of people who need it to progress in life. It is also not preparing young people for the world of the future, in my opinion, a world of artificial intelligence, robotics, and automation. And a lot of higher education has not caught up to the fact that we live in a world where knowledge is no longer scarce. Most higher education institutions were built in an era where information was scarce. And so you had to go to the institution to get that information from the library books or from the heads of the professors who were there. And today, thanks to technology, information is ubiquitous. A child in a rural area in Africa has access to more information on their mobile phone than someone who was doing a PhD at Oxford 30 years ago. That's a radical change that has happened, and yet most higher education has not caught up to the fact that they no longer have a monopoly on information. And so the last 2 years have been very exciting. One of the things I believe is that constraints drives innovation. And COVID has been a very powerful constraint that has forced higher education to do things differently. And we've seen tremendous innovation in the last 2 years, thanks to COVID. But as vaccination rates rise, like in most things in life, there's going to be the inertia to go back to the old ways of doing things. The gravitational pull of the familiar is going to force most institutions to go back to the safe, comfortable things that they're used to. And so if that is not to happen, I believe that we need to focus on 5 key barriers to innovation in higher education. These are the root causes that are really preventing higher education from truly achieving its full potential. I was going to call them the 5 sins of higher education, but perhaps I'll call them the 5 barriers to innovation, to higher education. The first root cause that is really preventing innovation, I believe, is regulation. Today, most regulation, when you think about quality assurance systems around the world, focus very much on inputs. The quality of an institution is measured based on the number of professors they have, the amount of land that they have. Sometimes to get accredited as a university, you need to have 100 hectares of land. You need to have so many books in your library, so many computers in your computer lab. It is very focused on inputs, doesn't track outputs. Like, do your graduates actually get employed? How many innovations come out of your institution? What do employers say about them? Are they actually changing lives? Are they making impact in society? And are they earning income? Is this something that is truly transforming their lives? Is it moving people from one segment of socioeconomic status to another? And so until we change our regulation, because to really track these outputs and impact, we'll continue to see sluggish innovation or no innovation in higher education, because what gets measured gets done. And in a regulated industry institution, innovation will need, or I guess the regulators will need to change what they measure to start to see different outcomes in higher education. The second barrier is rankings. Today, most rankings of higher education institutions is based, again, on inputs and on things like research and branding. One of the things that higher education is very fortunate to have is the stickiness of brands. Once you have a brand as a highly ranked institution, and that brand is based on a lot of these inputs, like the size of the buildings that you have, the size of the faculty, not necessarily the outputs, then that too is a barrier to driving innovation. The third barrier that I see is culture. As they say, culture eats strategy for breakfast any day. And traditionally, most of higher education is one of the most resistance to change in terms of the culture of the institutions, because if you think about it, most of higher education is based on tradition. When you attend a graduation ceremony, often it is celebrating robes and regalia from the 15th century UK. And this is what is seen as what is grand and great about higher education. And so the typical mantra in higher education is, but this is how we've always done it. And so one of the things I believe is that we need outsiders to enter higher education. We need more bold, visionary leadership that will actually challenge the status quo and will change the culture and will have the courage to do things differently and to move from the status quo. And that culture is very difficult to find in higher education. The fourth barrier that is preventing innovation is competition, or rather the lack thereof of competition. There's almost no industry today where the incumbents get to decide whether new entrants can come in or not. Yet in higher education, when a new institution is being accredited, very often existing institutions are the ones who decide whether new programs are valid, or they assess the quality of them, or whether new institutions should enter. And therefore, of course, who wants to have competition? And as a result, we continue to have, a duopoly, and almost as a sector, very few institutions where there's much higher demand than their supply, and they're not letting in new entrants. And again, this is really preventing and stifling innovation. And the fifth barrier is employers. Employers continue to complain about the fact that universities are not producing the skills that they want. Yet they continue to request the same things in jobs descriptions. And today, most employers use degrees as a signal, but don't really go beyond and look underneath the degree to really understand what's underneath it, the skills and the mindsets and the attitudes of the young people that are coming out of the institutions. And again, they are ultimately the customers of the products of universities. And until they change what they demand, until the employers demand different things from universities, we'll continue to see the same thing over and over again. So they say that insanity is continuing to do the same thing and expecting different results. COVID has shown us that under pressure, we do change. And so my hope and my challenge to my fellow panelists and the rest of the participants in Rewired over the next few days is to use this moment where we have been put under pressure to actually look at the possibilities, the tremendous possibilities that can come out when we think differently, when we actually choose to be bold enough to do things differently and to truly rewire our systems. There's tremendous potential that can happen, but we have to resist that status quo. And I hope that we will think about these 5 barriers and actually address these root causes if we're going to actually drive change. Thank you.
Our thanks for Fred, who joined us live from Nairobi, and for those meaningful insights, ladies and gentlemen. Brings a lot of questions and a lot of thoughts, thankfully, that will be discussed in our upcoming panel, ladies and gentlemen. Let's welcome to the stage our next panel, which will be on reimagining tertiary education, going beyond tweaking, and will be moderated by Lucy Haley, CEO of Education Sub-Saharan Africa. Please welcome them.